Hello, everybody, and welcome to the SoxProspects.com podcast, the official podcast of the best source on the internet for all the news, scouting, insight, and more on the Boston Red Sox farm system. I want to thank you for the download. My name is Chris Hatfield, coming to you from Sox Prospects Mid-Atlantic here in our nation's capital. As always, I am joined by our managing editor, Matt Hegel. Hello, Matt.
Hey, Chris. What's up? How's it going, Ian?
And, of course, we're joined by our director of scouting, Ian Kundle. Ian, hello.
Hey, guys. How are we doing?
We're getting near the end of July. It's the 25th as we record this, and been kind of a good month. Both Ian and I, and actually, I didn't even ask you before we recorded. Have you been? If you've been out recently, Matt? I know you've been writing recently, but I can't remember if you've been anywhere since the last episode.
I don't think since the last episode. I've been to Lowell and Pawtucket fairly recently, but
right.
We recorded just like a week ago or something. Yeah.
Right. We're recording tonight. I should mention a quick programming note before I get into the rest of the intro stuff. This is going to be our last episode for a few weeks. I'm on vacation from the end of this week through like mid-August. And I leave that kind of vague because I've got some stuff going on when I get back, such that I don't know when we'll be recording next. It could be as long as a month, but keep an eye out on Twitter, which... Segue, you can follow the site's Twitter at Sox Prospects. I'm on there at SP Chris Hatfield. Matt, tell them where you're at.
At Matt Hegel, MATTHUEGEL.
And Ian.
At Ian Kundle, IANCUNDALL.
And as always, we'll make sure we put out there when we're going to have a new episode, as well as on the news page at news.soxprospects.com. Make sure you're checking out the website. Check out the news page for Ian's features, for Ian's scouting features, Matt's features, write-ups when he's at games on guys. Good stuff from both of them on there right now. Make sure you check that out. We're going to have a new one coming up from Ian either tomorrow or on Wednesday, so that'll be coming out. As well, we want to thank you for downloading, and as always, make sure you subscribe, rate, and review. Helps us out, gets us in eardrums. You can subscribe on iTunes, on Stitcher. We're on Google Play Music, and I'm pretty sure I got it figured out that this episode will be the first that we're going to post to YouTube. There might be some kinks to work out, but I got it all set up to do so, so hopefully we'll be on YouTube as well with this episode. Subscribing is the easiest way to know when there are new episodes because they'll download automatically. As always, we want to thank the Ludlow Thieves for our intro music. Go check out their stuff on iTunes, Amazon, and Spotify. I'm sure they're on however you download or listen to your music. And we love getting your emails. Today's an email-heavy episode of the podcast. So if you've got a question, if you've got something you want to hear us talk about, send it to podcast@soxprospects.com. One request, if you could try and maybe keep it to either 3 short questions, or if you have one of those kind of more thoughtful, long, theoretical questions, make it one question per email. We don't want to have, episodes where we've got 8 questions per person or something crazy like that. So, if you want, you can always send an episode send an email when we get to it on an episode. Send an email for the next episode. So, we appreciate it, but we also want to make sure everybody gets a chance to get their questions in. We should probably jump right into our top 3 review. This week, it's actually a really good episode for this because Ian and I have seen the top 3 recently between him up in Portland and me getting to see Salem this past weekend in Frederick. Ian, let's start with you because you got the number 1 prospect in Yoan Moncada and the number 2 prospect in Andrew Benintendi, who have both been on fire of late. I don't have their stats in front of me since their last episode, but I know at the very least in the month of July, Moncada for Portland is hitting 290, 413, 661. He's got 6 home runs this month, which is kind of insane. And Benintendi in the exact same number of at-bats, although I think it looks like fewer plate appearances. He's hitting 274, 366, 516. I actually should also mention that Moncada's also got 6 steals this month. Benintendi, not quite the same power numbers or steal numbers, obviously, but also having a very good month. Between the two of them, what did you see when you were up in Portland?
Yeah, actually, Moncada's kind of been in a little bit of a slump. He's won for his last 12, I think, or 16, 15. Mm-hmm. Won for his last 15.
Yep.
With a lot of strikeouts, including a 0 for 5 with 5 strikeout day yesterday, which is very good.
Against a pitcher of what handedness?
I think he was a righty, actually.
Okay, interesting, because his numbers versus lefties in the month of July, is that in July or is that just overall in Portland? I think that's just overall in Portland, 2 for 16 at this point.
Yeah, he's not. Well, I think
10Ks.
wasn't he promoted in July? Oh no, he got a little bit past, didn't you? But yeah, I saw
that's for Portland alone.
Yeah, I saw him on Saturday, and he went 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts.
All right.
And, no, only 1 strikeout actually. And he did have 1 at bat against the lefty, and he flew out to left field on it. But it was a weak fly ball, and he didn't really look like he had a chance. The guy was throwing in mid-90s, big lefty. So that was the issue. And the swing, I got some good side view video that we'll be putting up on the site. So we're gonna have. I'm hoping. I don't know if it's possible to put like a side by side of his right and left-handed swings from the side, kind of show the differences there, and you'll see when you watch those either back to back or next to each other, you'll see it's just not as comfortable from the right side.
It really is.
But I think it's just with Moncada right now. I think when he got up to Portland, he was playing a little above his head, and especially given that power stretch where he's now got more home runs in Portland in 26 games than he did in Salem in 61 games, which isn't surprising, though, as I think you'll touch on. Salem, it just suppresses power, / the whole Carolina League does. So the Eastern League's a much better hitting environment. But I think just as a whole, you could still, when you watch him play, he made a couple really athletic plays in the field, and the swing was still good. He had 2 really hard hit balls. He just missed a home run in his first at bat, staying back on a fastball and driving it to left field, and it just was foul to the left of the monster. And then in his third at bat, he had a rip that was just happened to be right at the first baseman for a double play. There was just really nothing you could do. He turned on a fastball, but that's going to happen. So I think with him, it's just he's just going to get continued repetitions. Still was working counts like I've seen him. The pitch recognition is good. I think as people have kind of alluded to, the strikeout numbers are a little high, but I do think that is a product somewhat of how many pitches he's taking. Because as we've kind of, every time I've seen him this year, it's been noticeable that compared to other players, he just takes a ton of pitches. And whether that's, he feels obligated to do that because he's in a leadoff role or whatever, I'm not sure. But he's taken a ton of pitches. He had a stretch earlier this month where he had multiple walks in 4 straight games. So I think he'll be fine. And, this is just going to be a bump in a road. Pitchers maybe have made a slight adjustment, and now it's on him to turn it back around. And I don't have any doubt that he will. With Benintendi, he had a better day at the plate. He was 1 for 3 with a single and a walk. And the single was against that same lefty. Really good swing. I put some video up of it on Twitter. So if you want to go to my Twitter page, you can check that out. But he stayed back, 95-mile-per-hour fastball with 2 strikes, just shortened up, just a smooth level swing, line drive to center field. And that's kind of what he does. He's got such quick wrists and good bat speed that even 95 up in the zone is no issue for him. I still do have some questions though long term about how much the power is actually going to play. Like he's got plus raw power, but if you've seen him, and I think we've talked about this before, he's probably 5'8". Like he's so small, and it's just it's one of those guys when you talk to scouts too. This is the biggest thing I've gleaned from talking to scouts about him is the power. The power is, some people aren't convinced he's going to hit more than 10 to 15 home runs. And you can see it because you think about it, what player at the big league level is 5'8", and, you project annually to hit 20 plus home runs. Like Jose Altuve is 5'6", and he's actually going to hit probably 20 plus home runs this year, but he's never done that before this year. Mm-hmm. And so it's a hard comparison to make for a player like him. So I think that that's still somewhat up in the air is how much power he's actually going to hit for. The most noticeable thing was he played left field, which is probably the biggest thing. I don't know if anyone's been mentioning that's where he's going to be ending up for a while. But
if there were only a podcast or something where they talked about that, that's been
calling that for weeks.
Yeah,
but they finally did it. I think the funny thing was it the timing after Hazen or someone or Dombrowski said that he's going to be playing center field for the foreseeable future. And then the next day they moved him to left field.
Well, they say these things because it's not like they have a day in mind where it's like they know on July the 5th that on July 22nd they're going to play Benintendi in left field. You know what
exactly.
I mean?
But it's my thing is like if you are even thinking about it, why say, oh no, there's no chance that's happening, or we don't have it in our plans right now? It's like, come on.
And we should probably mention it's also been reported by I think Kevin Thomas of the Portland Press Herald said that Yoan Moncada has been taking grounders at third base before games, which may not sound like a lot, but he has always taken grounders before games at second base. So it's not like it is actually a difference.
Yeah, I mean, I watched. They said, I remember because in the article, I think Carlos Feblis, the manager, talked about how, oh no, that's just, don't read too much into it. That's just, we do the same thing with Zhu Weilin taking ground balls at second base. Just in versatility in case someone gets hurt.
Right, but Zhu Weilin has also played other positions.
Well, no, I know. And what I was going to say is, I sat on them for 4 games and watched BP and infield, or 3 games and watched BP and infield every day, and Moncada only took ground balls at second base. So it's a change. Like, that's what I was going to say is like that's different. The fact I'm agreeing with you.
Right. Oh no, I know you are. I'm not. Yeah. Sorry.
So, but anyway, so Benintendi in left field. He was fine. I mean, he made a nice play in the first inning, shoestring catch, ranging over the line. But he did have one that he misplayed, which was the one that, a ball that he's going to have to get used to dealing with at Fenway. So for those who don't, I guess actually we should mention this. Not a lot of people, if you don't know what Portland is like, Portland has a replica green monster in left field. So it's a good place for him to learn, bounces off the wall, how to play the wall, etc. And this was a fly ball right up against the left center field wall, but it was a little short of it. And you could tell when he first started going back on the ball, he was a little bit confused about how far to go. And it was one of these ones where he should have caught it up against the wall, but he kind of short-armed it when he got close to the wall, and it ended up going over his head and hitting the warning track, and then bouncing off the wall for a double. And it seemed like he kind of got caught in between trying to find the ball and trying to find the wall, and wasn't really sure of himself with that. And that's just one of those things that it's going to come with more reps. It's a different the angles and the reads off the bat are a little different in left field than they are in center field. And then again, also, it's kind of intimidating when you're running back and you've got that huge wall behind you. So it was just, I think I would just chalk it up to inexperience, and he'll be fine eventually. He's not one of the guys. He's not a guy, though, that I would ever project to be like a plus defender in the outfield. He's going to be a solid defender, probably.
Yeah, we've been saying that about Benintendi for a while.
Yeah, so he's not on the same level as any of the center field options they have in the big leagues with Betts and Bradley. And, I would even put him a tick below some of the other guys, they have in the system, like Luis Alexander Basabe, for example, because he just doesn't have the arm strength. He doesn't have the total, skill set for center fielder. So the fact that he's moving to left field isn't the end of the world to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's not necessarily moving to left field quite yet. He did play center field yesterday.
Oh, he did? Okay.
Yeah,
he played left field, I think, 3 games or 2 games in a row?
Two. He played on the 22nd and 23rd, which was Friday and Saturday, and then on Sunday he played center again. So, and that makes sense. They're not going to do it full time all of a sudden. They're gonna ease him into it.
It'll probably be like a 4 out of 7 thing or 5 out of 7.
Yeah, I mean, I think I actually looked this up, and I don't know if it's recent enough in my tweets that I can find it easily, but Mookie Betts when he first moved. Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
I was just going to add, to be clear, I mean, he's not a guy who, you say couldn't play center in the future. He's,
right.
I think that
no,
not necessarily moving him off the position. You're just finding a position that's probably suits him maybe a little bit better and suits the team better.
Okay, yeah, so Betts, go ahead.
Yeah, what Matt said, it's not that he's not capable of playing center field. It's as you said that the other 2 guys are better defenders in center and thus provide more value. So it makes sense to move him to the the less valuable defensive position because he's not going to be wasted there. Whereas if you put Jackie Bradley in left field in Fenway, that's just a waste of what he can do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Mookie Betts, when he finally he moved to started playing center field about a month and a half into his stint in Portland, and Mookie, he played 4 of his first 8 games. So starting from the first time he played center field, 4 of the following 8 games he played in center. So he did 2 in center, 2 at second, 2 in center, 2 at second. After that, he or actually 3 of those games were at second base, 1 was at DH. Then in 8 of his final 9 AA games, he played in center field. So I think part of that was they just accelerated it because they realized he was going to be moving up to AAA. So it'll be interesting to see if they do something similar with Benintendi, or to see if they maybe play it a little slower, a little faster. Because, I mean, as I said on Twitter, you would think that moving a getting a center fielder experience in left field isn't quite as big of a deal as getting a second baseman experience in center. A little bit of a difference. So who knows what they're going to do with Benintendi out there. But yeah, definitely, it's going to be interesting to see the two of them. We have some emails that ask questions about them, so we'll get to those in a minute. I'll jump in really quick right here, if you guys don't mind, about Rafael Devers. Yes, Raffy loves me. Yes, Raffy loves me. The home runs tell me so. I've counted, and now after seeing Devers go deep over the weekend, I've seen 6 regular season Rafael Devers games the past 2 years. He has 6 home runs in those 6 games. He hit 2 the first game last year. He hit a home run in each of the games I saw down in Greenville with Ian, and then didn't homer the first game I saw him in this year, and he's homered each of the last 2 games I've seen him in, which were both this month. I mean, there's pop there, man, and it's kind of crazy looking at his numbers for July. It looks like, so I'll just say this because, Ian, I know you wanted to point this out just before the show, so I'll just read it. Luis Alexander Basabe is having a great month of July. He's hitting 380, 458, 662. Great recovery from being just outright bad in the first 2.5 months of the season, 3 months. But Devers in the month of July, in 22 games, is hitting 378, 434, 711. He has 20 extra base hits in 22 games. He's got 13 doubles, 4 triples, and 3 home runs. Just to provide some context, the next highest number of doubles in the system this month, which is actually very surprising to me now that I see it, 2 players are tied with 8. One is Nick Longy, which makes sense. The other, surprisingly, I would have never guessed this, is Jeremy Rivera. Has 8 doubles this month, which surprises me. So, I mean,
and the Devers thing, how many of those are home runs?
Right, and
3 or 4 of them.
That's the thing with the Carolina League, is that especially Salem's Park, it suppresses power. And I mean, Devers having 4 triples, I guarantee you 3 of those are home runs in the Eastern League or Sally League, right? I mean,
yeah, I mean that's insane. Because that's whenever you take can't be harped on enough, or I think we've mentioned it every episode for the last couple of weeks, but Carolina League hitting statistics you got to take with a grain of salt.
Huge grain of salt.
Power.
Huge grain of salt. Yeah, it's. I mean, Devers. It's just what he has been able to do at the plate. I just realized that my notes from the game are across the room, and I'm not going to go get them because I don't really need them. Just because Devers was really the only guy who I saw who was really worth talking about,
except for a pitcher.
I did see the pitcher. That's right. Maybe I should get the notes. That's a good point. I forgot about that. But yeah, Devers. I mean, just the power he showed. I mean, the pitch he hit was to center field, a little to the left of center, and he hit it over again all 3 levels of fencing in Frederick, which is an absolute bomb. No doubter off the bat. Immediately we went right into the home run trot. Nobody moved to get it. It was just impressive. And it's an easy swing. It's, Ian, we've described it, I think, as controlled. What was it? Controlled chaos or
controlled violence? Or
controlled violence. Yes, I can never remember. Controlled violence. It's a little quieter now. And I think that's part of it. I mean, I know last time or the time before I described it as he gets up there and puts the bat on his shoulder. That's kind of oversimplifying it. I mean, there's still a little bit of wiggle there, but it's not a lot of wiggle. He's kind of toned it down a lot. And the swing he's toned down a lot, too.
Well, and I think the thing with him, too, is that he's one of those guys which don't come around very often where when you hear, who's hitting when you hear the sound the ball makes off his bat.
Yeah.
You could be in the concourse and you could hear it and you'll be like, oh yeah, that's Devers. Mm-hmm. And there's not very many guys in the system. Moncada's one of those guys. I don't think there's another one in the system right now.
No.
It's just them two. Even Benintendi, it doesn't make the sound like it does off Devers, and Moncada's bad, but Devers even more so. He's just one of those special hitters. And the fact that I completely forgot that he's still younger. We were talking about Basabe. He's younger than Basabe.
Sorry if you're waiting. I just ran across the room to get my notes.
Yeah. So okay.
But I got him.
I just mentioned that it's hard. It's we sometimes need to remember how young Devers is for the level. Like he's younger than Luis Alexander Basabe, who I was just talking up, who's hitting 260 in Greenville and performing. He's actually exceeding my expectations. But even Devers is younger than him, and he's a full level ahead. And at this point, I wouldn't be. Maybe because Salem's going to be in the playoffs and Portland isn't, he won't get promoted. But he's if you took that out of the equation, I would guess that he's now put himself in line for the 2-week cup of coffee to end the year in Portland.
Question: of these three, who do you send to Arizona?
I think you send Moncada because I think Benintendi will be on the big league roster.
I'd send Devers too.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't complain. Can you?
Yeah. Oh, you can't.
Though? I don't think Devers can go,
You're
right?
I always forget about that.
Oh, right.
Yeah, Devers can't go because he'll be playing in the Dominican.
Yeah, so Moncada can go though. Moncada can go though. That was a weird one. I think Moncada goes because they're going to expose him to some other positions potentially, unless he's on the roster as the Quentin Berry Memorial role.
That's true. Well, you could play in the Arizona Fall League if you played in the majors, I think. Can't you?
I think so.
I don't know.
Anyway, what I could see them doing with Moncada is sending him to Puerto Rico for the winter and having him play third base there, away from the harsh glare of the media lights in the U.S.
It's a good point, actually, because the Fall League's pretty heavily covered by the media, especially because there's all those conventions out there and everything during the fall. So
they'll send him to like Alex Cora's team.
Yeah, did he play there last year?
An affiliate. Wasn't he supposed to when he got hurt?
Vasquez played there, I think. Yeah, Vasquez did. Played DH there.
Vasquez had the weird thing where he wasn't playing on the team he was with, and so he asked them to release him or something. It was weird. It was strange. But anyway, the rest of the Salem lineup, and maybe after this you can talk about some guys you saw, Ian, if there's anybody else worth mentioning. But the Salem lineup isn't nearly as interesting as it was. Nick Longy didn't have a great night. He did have one single through the right side, but it was balls on the ground, 2 strikeouts. First strikeout in the first inning, he swung through a slider, and then the 8th inning he swung through a fastball up. Then he grounded out, kind of hit the ball into the ground. Even the single was just a ground ball through the right side. And the rest of that lineup, Danny Mars actually had a nice home run to right field. He jumped on a fastball. He's pretty athletic. I actually didn't mention this last time, but did we look up what side we got a 4-1 on him from? But
I would assume it's left-handed.
Yeah, it was a left-handed 4-1.
He can run though. He's got really short, choppy steps, but it works.
Yep. But the rest of that lineup wasn't super impressive, frankly. But what was impressive, sort of at least, was Michael Kopech, who started, which is the reason I went, because it was kind of a crazy weekend for me. But it was a very strange outing for Kopech. He lasted for 4 innings. I was kind of surprised came back out for the 4th, but he got a nice quick inning, which was good for him to end on. He threw almost all fastballs, which was really interesting. It was really hot up in Frederick. It was in the 90s and humid. In the first inning, he came out sitting 97, 98. He touched 99 a few times, 3 or 4 times. There's one pitch and this is why you can't trust radar guns. When I go to games and I get these radar numbers, I make sure I'm sitting behind a radar gun, whether it be the player's charting or a scout. The scout who I was sitting behind, his gun registered one fastball that didn't get swung at 103. And I asked the guy behind me what he had it at, and he had it at 99. So, again, the fact that he hit 105 on a gun or 2 guns, that doesn't mean anything. Think of it this way.
Well, he didn't hit 105. That's what
he didn't. No, he didn't. He didn't hit 105. And but he did look like he was laboring out there a little bit. Like I said, it was hot, it was humid. I keep meaning to text Kevin Burke to find out. At one point, the trainer came out. I don't know if he was cramping up or something, but the trainer and then Joe Oliver came out to visit him on the mound, and he threw a couple warm-up pitches, and he started pitching again. But he was fine. After the first inning, he actually settled in at around 96, 97, touching 98. So his velo dropped a little bit, and then in the third inning, he was down to 95 to 97, and then in his fourth and final inning, he was sitting more 95, 96. So, his velo did drop a little bit as the game went on, but that said, like I mentioned, it was really hot and really humid, so you really can't fault him too much for that. And he threw a lot of pitches in his first 3 innings. I don't have the numbers in front of me because I didn't chart him so much, just marked down velos. He threw probably about 10 sliders that ranged in velocity from anywhere between 82 to 90 miles per hour. He didn't have great feel for the pitch on Saturday. He buried it in the dirt a lot. I'd say probably about half of them were in the dirt. At the higher velocities, it's interesting. He had one at 82. The rest were 85 to 90. The 82 one was up. It looked like it slipped. So it was really more of an 85 to 90 mile per hour pitch. But like I said, he buried it in the dirt half the time. It just wasn't great. And I only had him throwing one changeup at 87 miles per hour. So this was just not really a start where you come away thinking that he got a lot out of it, other than kind of working his way through it and gutting through a bad start. He did, after that mound visit, he did start throwing a lot more strikes, but he was having a lot of trouble locating the fastball. I don't know whether, sometimes, you hear about in the lower levels of the minors, teams won't have radar guns on the scoreboard because they don't want guys to know what they're throwing. We do know that, I think it's in the Gulf Coast League and in extended spring training, they don't tell guys what their velocities are because they don't want them to know, because they want them to go out there and learn to pitch rather than pitching to the radar gun. And I got the feeling that Kopech might have been trying to light up the radar gun, honestly, especially with how hot he came out. 97, 98, 99, 99, 98, something like that. And it was just all fastballs the first time through the order. Like I mentioned, he threw one changeup and he threw a couple of sliders, and the second time through the order he started working the slider in a little bit more, but when he didn't have any feel for it, he just abandoned it and went all fastball. And you see an outing like this, the velocity is great, but you can't help but wonder if the future's in the bullpen. And that's why, like, as excited as everybody is about the velocity and as great a job as he's done cleaning up the mechanics, just from when he was drafted, when you'd look at video of him and just be like, oh boy, he's got a lot of things to tweak. Now the mechanics, they work for him. I'm not an expert enough about mechanics to know if anything was out of whack or anything in the start, but they work. The mechanics work for him. They're great. But Kopech, you can't help watch an outing like that and just wonder, that's a potential future closer right there. Maybe he can be a Chapman coming in and just sling in like 100 for an inning. It's interesting, to see what he could be in a late inning bullpen role. It's the development of those secondary pitches. Like I said, the slider wasn't even a pitch he threw often enough to throw any. He couldn't even throw a grade on it. It flashes plus, we know from other outings. Ian, I think you've seen it flash plus, right? But
yeah.
Not
this year though.
Not this year. It was a meh pitch for me, and like I said, he only threw one changeup that I noticed. One of the scouts turned around at one point and asked another scout, like, I've only got him throwing one changeup, right? So it wasn't just me. So unless I missed one late, he just wasn't even throwing the pitch. So a rough outing for him, but it's an educational outing. He'll learn that he has to gut through outings like that, and eventually he's, at this high A level, he got away with throwing fastballs, even though he had a lot of base runners. I should probably bring up the box score, but you see an outing like that.
It was 2 hits, 3 walks, and I think he had a couple hit by pitches too. Because I know you.
Yes, he had a couple of guys.
He almost killed someone.
Yeah, well, you got
2 hit by pitches. So he allowed 7 base runners in 4 innings.
Yeah. So he's had better outings, but you can't get too exciting. I think I saw a lot of people from the news that he hit 105 and he had a couple of good outings, freaking out and saying, "Oh, it's really a big 4. I would take Kopech over Devers." No, Kopech's got a lot. Kopech is not on the level of Devers, of Benintendi and Moncada. He's a step below. That's not saying we don't like him. I like him a lot, and it's not every day that you can get a guy in the system who sits, for an inning, even 97, 98, touching 99. We probably have to update his scouting report on his player page because the velo is a little higher than what we've got there. But at the same time, I would not mind seeing him sit 95 to 97 with better command,
Yeah, I was just going to say, when I saw him earlier this year, he was like 94, 98. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like, he can. It's one thing to sit that high for an inning, but like for an outing, if he wants to be a starter, as you said, I don't think he's probably gonna be like 95, 97, 95, 96 mainly.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things where he doesn't have the polish or like the feel that someone like Espinosa does, or there's still questions. And as you said, only throwing one changeup is kind of absurd. Like, I understand he's probably working on fastball command, but at the same time, like his changeup is not a very good pitch. Like, I honestly, it's not even an average. It won't even show average potential at this point.
Right.
And so it's like, if it's all well and good to throw, high 90s, but if you can't complement that with secondary pitches or locate it, then,
well,
there's guys in the system who can do that.
Well, what one of the scouts said is, you go up and everybody's throwing 100 in the major leagues right now out of the bullpen. Like velocity isn't enough in the major leagues. If you've only got 2 pitches, there's a name for that, relief pitcher.
Yeah, you look at it like, guys like Victor Diaz, German Tavares, like even Simone Mercedes. It's like they're all guys that have thrown, mid to upper 90s, but I don't know if any of them are big leaguers because they don't have, the secondary pitches and the commands to match it. And obviously Kopech's not on that level. I would take Kopech over all those guys by a significant margin. And we're obviously nitpicking here, but when you're talking about pitching prospects, that's the thing you have to do, especially given how much trouble they've had developing starting pitchers.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Right. But, it was an intriguing outing. Getting to see Kopech was good. Like I said, it's not every day you get to see velo like that, so that was fun. But some other quick scouting notes I want to mention. The fastball did have a little bit of arm side run, which was good. It's not a straight fastball. Straight velocity is going to get lit up in the major leagues. I don't care if you throw 100. 100 straight goes out at 110. He did hold his velocity from the stretch as well, which was intriguing. It was good to see. But the other thing, too, mechanically that I did notice, he's got a lot of arm recoil in his follow-through. So, he'd follow through and the arm would just come whipping way back up. You don't really like seeing that. I mean, I'm not a mechanics expert to know enough whether that is a bad thing or isn't a bad thing. But it was definitely noticeable, the arm recoil at the end of the pitch. So, but interesting to go see him. Anyway, Michael Kopech. I look forward to seeing him again. Hopefully, we'll see him in either fall instructor. He strikes me as a guy that will almost certainly go to Arizona. Come to think of it, make up the innings he lost.
He'll go somewhere because he needs innings.
Yeah. So I think he could handle Arizona. Honestly, it would be a nice challenge for him. Anyone else that you wanted to mention from Portland?
I can see them theirs. No, Jalen Beek started. He had some issues with his control, but he still missed bats, and he was 90 to 92 in the first inning, top 94, showed 4 pitches, but I think he's a reliever long term, and this outing did nothing to dissuade me from that opinion. Other than him, both Ty Buttrey and Williams Jerez threw. Buttrey, I wasn't impressed really at all. He was like 91 to 95, didn't even show a below average secondary pitch, so that wasn't very good. And Jerez, he was a little better this time than the last time I saw him, but
Williams Jerez.
I don't know what it is, but Williams Jerez. I don't know what it is. He just doesn't look like the same pitcher he did last year. I don't know what's going on there, but this stuff is just taking a step back. Instead of a mid-90s fastball, it's now low 90s. Slider doesn't have the bite it usually did, so I'm not really sure what's up with him, but it's maybe an up and down guy at best right now, but I don't think he's not a legitimate bullpen option for me anymore. And bats, there's nothing else in that lineup. So,
all right,
yeah,
fair enough. Fair enough.
Try to be quick tonight.
Yeah, so let's hop into the listener emails. Again, if you want to send us an email, send it to podcast@soxprospects.com. We always appreciate getting your questions, comments, concerns, we want to talk about what you want to hear about. And I guess I'll go right to our first email. Our first email is from John in Salisbury, North Carolina. And John said, in the most recent podcast, you mentioned how good Henry Owens was in his last start. 6 2/3 no-hit innings, I believe, was the line. Could this have anything to do with the fact that Christian Vasquez was sent to Pawtucket as a catcher? Vasquez has been known as a pitcher's catcher when it comes to calling a game and receiving pitches. Could that be the contributing factor of Owens' success? I know Vasquez was sent down because he has options where other catchers did not have options, but after watching a Pawtucket game in June, I believe he makes a huge difference in their ability by calling a good game at the AAA level, and the pitching staff is better based on his skill set. Thanks. First, let's answer the question. Ian, how much did Vasquez have to do with Henry Owens' game?
None, because he didn't play. It was Dan Butler caught that today.
Well, there's that.
Yeah.
So let's just say, more theoretically, in terms of what are your thoughts, briefly, not getting too far into it, but, there's a lot of talk now about a catcher's ability to impact a pitching staff. And thanks for the question, John. But catcher's ability to impact a pitching staff, do you believe in that? How much do you believe in that? How much do you see it? And specific to Vasquez, how much do you see it?
Yeah, no, I definitely believe in it. I think there's kind of two facets to it. There's the receiving portion of it. Well, there's three, actually. There's the game calling portion, the receiving portion, and then the ability to control the running game. Though a lot of that stems from the pitcher, too, the controlling the running game. Mm-hmm. What I think Vasquez does really well is I do think he is a good game caller. I think, though, that I don't know if you can take so much of him calling the game at the AAA level, especially considering it's not like he's been with these pitchers the entire season. Mm-hmm. So, it might be, and the pitchers at AAA, they rotate through so much. Like, you guys got making spot starts, you got guys getting traded, guys getting cut. So I think it's harder at the minor league level to do it, because especially in the lower minors, often the pitching coach is calling the game. The catchers don't call their own games, or very rarely do. But the other thing is that, they don't. You can't really develop that repertoire or feel with pitchers that you get, at the big league level. If you're catching them, you're specifically catching that pitcher every day. Receiving wise, I think Vasquez does do a pretty good job with that. I know the framing numbers prior to this year were good. I don't believe they were as good as they had been in past years this year. But I think one thing that he does do is he gets a little bit lazy with his receiving when runners are on base, because he likes to kind of cheat to throw guys out. And I do think that sometimes can impact the pitcher, where he'll set up, a little bit higher to try and be able to get a quicker release, or he'll pull the ball instead of spotting or holding it, he'll, have a quick transfer to try and backpick a guy or something. And the same thing with you'll see that he'll get a little lazy on balls in the dirt, because he'll try to just backstab it and pick someone. So I think that can have a little bit of impact. I do think he's a very good defensive catcher, but I also do think the potential impact he could have on a pitching staff was overblown early in the season. And we kind of saw that when he came up, and the pitching staff had a little bit of a bump back towards the norm, which would have been expected, but then kind of, again, really struggled. And, when you have bad pitching and you have real questions about whether he can even hit at all, that's going to get exposed at the everyday level. So, yeah.
Sure. Thanks for the question. Next question is a theoretical question. It's from Zach, and he says, "Hey guys, I was curious if you guys think the Red Sox problem developing starting pitching prospects is more due to poor scouting and drafting, or coaching and development once they're in the system. Thanks, Zach." Kind of a tough question to answer. I think generally I'm speaking for, we don't necessarily have the answer, capital T, capital A, but Matt, maybe because Ian kind of had most of the last question. Do you have any thoughts on that? Is there any one particular problem you think that they have, or is it just kind of how the cards have fallen, in your opinion?
Yeah, it's tough to say. I mean, you can't discount a little bit of luck mixed in there, I guess. I think the thing that's been apparent is they haven't had those sort of pitchers that don't really wow you, sort of take that next step at the major league level. Mm-hmm. The guys who made it to AAA and were pretty good prospects, they just never took that next jump. I'm thinking of Anthony Renato's, even I don't know if I can throw Brandon Workman in there, but he's the same sort of type who looks like more of a reliever. You could throw Matt Barnes, Henry Owens. I don't even going back to Michael Bowden, those type of guys. Well, how
about this? I mean, going back to the beginning of 2010, here are the starting pitchers who've ranked in the top 5. Casey Kelly, Tommy John never recovered, right? Anthony Renato never really panned out, probably was ranked too high. Drake Britton, live arm, turned into a reliever, never really had, second pitcher even, or just had the second, never got a third. Felix Dubront, who looked like he was going to be fine and then just never really figured out how to pitch, basically is how I would put it. Renato, Matt Barnes, who we mentioned, reliever at the major league level. Alan Webster, great stuff, couldn't figure it out. Rubio La Rosa, back end starter, maybe probably a little bit better as a bullpen arm in the major league level. More of that Henry Owens, who the book's not out. He's, he could still make it, but just can't throw a strike right now, and the stuff's too pedestrian to make up for that. Eduardo Rodriguez, who again could be that guy. He's not having a good year. I think it's easy to forget about him given the year he's having. And then Anderson Espinoza, who just got traded away, of course, and Michael Kopech, who we just talked about.
And I mean, look at a guy like Trey Ball, for instance. He's a guy who you would think, coaching is sort of everything for him. He's got some raw talent, and it just, they couldn't really, they haven't been able to so far get him to really shine with that talent. But I don't know. I think in a lot of cases that that if they have the talent, it's going to come through. So I don't know. I think I would lean more scouting and drafting overall, even though I discussed more on the other side. I feel like that for the most part, players who can make it end up rising to the top. So, I guess I'd lean more scouting and drafting overall, but there's definitely some coaching influence in there.
Ian, what do you think?
Yeah, I kind of think part of it too is that the new slotting system has really hurt their ability to develop starting pitchers. Because in the past, they could take 5 or 6 guys after the 10th round, give them $500K plus each pitchers. And I'm just looking now, since the slots were instituted, what was it, 2013 or was it 2012?
2012.
It's 2012. So in that draft, you get first round. You actually took they took a ton of pitchers in the top 5 round, and pretty soon after seeing them, it was pretty clear that the only one who was a potential starter was Brian Johnson. And so, guys like Pat Light, Jamie Callahan, Austin Maddox, Ty Buttrey, just, you gave them a lot of money, but it just, they never had a third pitch. They never took that next step, as Matt alluded to. But at the same time, I know talking to a scout right after that draft who said that he thought there was no chance Pat Light was a starter. And this was at the time of the draft. So, and then you go forward to 2013, as you said, Ball, Stankiewicz, but you look at the other pitchers they've taken, again, Corey Luttrell was a reliever, Mike Adams was a reliever, Kyle Martin's a reliever, Miles Smith was a reliever. Even Stankiewicz, I know some people thought he was a reliever come draft time. Same with, you look at 2014, Cozart's a reliever, Kevin McAvoy's a reliever, Reed Riley's already gone, but he was a reliever, Kevin Steen is going to end up in the bullpen. Kopech, the book is still out. He could be a starter, could be a reliever. We don't know. It's just and then after that, though, there's no, you don't have any money to spend to take those, projectable high school arms that have a chance to start. And you're not going to get a polished, or a college guy who's going to be a likely starter after the 10th round anymore. It's just not something that happens. So I think that's, the new draft system has really hurt them in that regards. And that's why we've kind of seen them trying to go international with some of their spending when it comes to pitching, especially that year. They took Espinoza, Christopher Acosta, guys like that. And obviously the Espinoza, they traded him, which is fine. They got Logan Allen too. That was, I was going to get there. He's the one who from last year, I think, was the best chance to be a starter. They traded him immediately. Christopher Acosta is on the restricted list. So it's just, I think some of it's bad luck, some of it is the scouting, and some of it is just the rule change has really impacted them in that regards. And I don't know what there is to be done about it, especially given that I think it's likely that they're going to end up losing their first round pick next year because they're going to sign someone to be a DH, someone like Encarnacion or Batista. And it's hard under the new system, to get starters, unless you get really lucky or you have all those extra picks. And that's why I think we're seeing with the teams that end up with all the extra picks, like the Braves, the Padres, they just load up on pitching. And, you hope a few stick.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see this year's draftees, how they shake out, and that'll that might tell us a lot. I mean, Jason Groom fell right into your lap at the number 12 pick. If he doesn't develop, that's pretty, for on-field reasons at least, obviously, that'd be a pretty damning indictment of the player development system, at least as far as the mound goes. And then after that, you've got guys who are interesting like Sean Anderson, Mike Shawarian. We'll see what happens with those guys.
Well, yeah, and this year's interesting too because you look at it Anderson's a closer, but they're probably going to convert him to a starter. Schwarren's a starter, he's going to be run out as a starter. But it seems like some people think he's a reliever long term. And watching his arm action, I wouldn't disagree with that assessment necessarily. Looking forward to seeing him though. But then like Nogasek's a reliever. Matthew Gorst is a reliever. The rest of the arms they took are all relievers. Mm-hmm. So, it really comes down to Groom, Anderson, and Schwarren to get a starter from this draft. But as you said, if everything goes right with Groom, that's the one that they need to hit on.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, thank you for the question. We got a couple of quick ones coming up here. We got three questions from Tyler. And Tyler, the first one, we just talked about. When will we see Michael Kopech in the majors? What is his ceiling? Seems pretty simple. I mean, obviously, it's tough to say when because he's in high A right now, and a lot depends on his development. I wouldn't count on him before 2018, even if things go perfectly. That sound right?
Yeah, unless they move him to the bullpen and just say screw it and try to fast track him.
Yeah,
the only thing that could change it. But even then, I think even wouldn't. 2018 might be aggressive.
Yeah, and then his ceiling.
I'm not a good person to ask because I don't think it's more than like a 3.
I just don't say a 3.
I don't see a third pitch, and I don't see the command to profile as a front of the rotation starter. It's nice to throw in the high 90s, but if you don't have command and you don't have that third pitch, then you're not a 1 or a 2. And
just to clarify too, we'll probably catch a lot of crap for saying that because he throws 100. What if the command? If the command develops and he gets a third pitch, that's a number 1 starter. It's like, well, it's really hard to project a guy who's in high A. And yes, I mean, how old is Kopech at this point?
21, probably.
21. He's 20. He's still 20.
Yeah.
April 30th, 96. So he's still 20. You don't project guys to have a third pitch go from being a below average pitch to say an above average pitch. You know what I mean?
You don't project guys to have a third pitch that they don't throw to go from.
Right.
But I think too, we should mention saying if Kopech develops into 3, that's incredible. The Red Sox just traded Anderson Espinosa for a number 3 starter.
Right.
Number 3 starters or Rick Porcello is a number 3 starter. Those guys are incredibly valuable right now. And so if he develops into a number 3 starter, that's a fantastic pick where they got him. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the one thing that, given how rare starting pitching is, anyone who even develops into a starter is a that's a good pick. So just saying a guy's a number 3 is not meant to knock him or anything. And if he doesn't turn into the starter, I think it is closer potential in the bullpen. So yeah.
All right. Next question from Tyler is: who's more likely to be the Red Sox first baseman 2 years from now, Sam Travis or Travis Shaw? Matt, what do you think?
Neither. No.
Yep.
Sam Travis, maybe, I guess, if I had to pick.
Yeah, what do you think, Ian?
I was going to say neither also, but I think it could be a platoon of them if they end up staying in-house, honestly.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I think they're going to either go outside the organization for someone or, maybe Travis.
Let me put it this way. To answer the question.
A Travis will be one of, if you're giving me those two options, a Travis.
Stop it. Will you stop? No.
Was that towards the cat?
No, that was you. That was me doing my Gorilla Monsoon impression.
I don't know what that is.
Oh, God. All right. Anyway, well, Sam, I would say, to answer the question, Sam Travis, but I think his chances of actually being the guy took a big hit this year when he tore his ACL, because I think in order for them to commit to him at first base, he needed to continue hitting in AAA, and I think he needed to get a call up at the end of the year and hit well. I can't, the problem is that next year, I mean, hey, I think it's more likely that Hanley Ramirez is the Red Sox first baseman 2 years from now than either of them, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, probably. Fair.
It's just I can't see them moving him, and I don't think he's playing poorly enough that they would run away from him.
He's having a good year.
Ceiling there. He's having a pretty good year, especially lately. But
yeah, and I think with Shaw, we're seeing the issues with him, the stuff we talked about, the struggles versus left-handed pitching. He's just I'm not sold. He's an above average regular. I think he could be an average regular, but I think his best role would be as a corner platoon bat where you can limit his exposure to lefties and have him play some first base and some third base. And I think maybe with Ramirez, if Ramirez is a first base, that could be the role we see him in next year if they sign someone to be a DH and have another third baseman coming in the pipeline.
Yep. And then Tyler's last question: what is your take on Michael Chavis' progress this year? Does he have a future with the Major League club? A player that you saw recently we talked about on a past episode, so we don't really need to get too far into it, but just really quick answering the questions. What's your take on his progress, if you think he has made any, and does he have a future with the Major League club?
He's in better shape. There's still some issues with the swing and at the plate. I think that there's major league upside, but at this point, I don't think it would be with the Red Sox. I think he's going to end up getting traded.
All right. Thanks for the questions, Tyler. Our next couple of questions are from Austin. And Austin says, hey guys, I've always been interested in some of the international signings from countries not exactly viewed as hotbeds for talent. I was wondering what sort of scouting feedback you could give on some of the following prospects. He mentions Nicolo Clemente from Italy, Edelson Batista from Brazil, who is he even in the U.S.? I don't even know if anyway, and Daniel McGrath from Australia, so those are three guys. McGrath is in Salem. He's a guy we've talked about, so maybe start with McGrath, Ian.
Yeah, his stuff is just it's fringy. It's a pitchability guy. I think he's more an org guy.
Mm-hmm. Edelson Batista is still pitching in the Dominican Summer League. We've never seen him. We don't have any scouting on him, I don't believe. But have you seen Clemente, Ian?
No.
No? Okay.
He's one of the few.
Okay, so Clemente is currently in the Gulf Coast League. We haven't seen him yet either. Maybe Ian will get to see one or both of them in Instructs this fall. In the fall.
Yeah, that's the hope.
And as for his second question, he's asked, lots of talk after the latest international sanctions that the Red Sox are going to drop Bucko Bucks on the 2017 signing period. With Venezuela being so volatile, do you think the Red Sox will look into the Asian amateur market again? I guess I'll take that, and you guys can add anything if you have anything to add. First off, I think that's always been the plan, because the Red Sox were restricted in their 2015 and 2016 July 2 classes because they went over their cap the previous year to sign Yohan Moncada, Anderson Espinosa, and Christopher Acosta, among others. So that would always be the plan. But the problem, or I guess the kind of factor, is that the collective bargaining agreement is going to expire and will be renegotiated. So we don't even really know what the international signing system is going to be for the next year's signing period. So it's really hard to say. I think if they will go crazy next year, because with the way it's currently set up, it's set up such that you want to spend all kinds of money every 3 years, frankly, because the sanctions the punishments, quote unquote, that are in place for going over your international cap are not such that it makes it not worth it. As for Venezuela versus Asia, I think the Red Sox hit Venezuela hard because I think they think it's an area that they've hit hard for the last few years because they feel like they can get more bang for their buck down there, as opposed to, say, the Dominican. But I think they always look into the Asian amateur market. They haven't really had anyone the past couple of years come from out there, but it's an area that's scouted. It's an area they've gone to before for Junichi Shizawa, for example. Sue Lin is in Double A right now, playing infield. From out of there, I'm sure it wouldn't surprise me at all if they signed someone out of there. But you got to remember that even though the Asian market is better than, say, some of these non-traditional markets, it's not like it's an area that produces 30 to 40 guys every year. It produces such that the Red Sox will sign a guy out of there every 3-4 years or so. So wouldn't surprise me if they sign someone out of there. But
well, the other issue is too that in the Asian market, a lot of it is heavily restricted because teams have their national leagues that they play for. So it's rare that you see Asian amateurs come over.
Right. That's true.
Yeah, and I was going to add on the Venezuelan piece, the fact that it's so volatile. I think they see that as an opportunity. Some other teams are afraid to go into that situation, or they
avoid it.
Avoid it. Avoid it altogether. And they can get a little, like you said, a little more bang for their buck. But I think that's sort of a money ball. Sort of see that as an opportunity to sign out of Venezuela.
Good point. Kind of the what's the term out of Moneyball? You probably know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Structural weakness is the thing that's in my head, and I know that that's absolutely not the correct term, but Market inefficiency.
Yeah, there it is. Yep.
There you go. Yeah, it's a market inefficiency I think that they see right now, where they can go in and part of it is the dreaded package deals, but I mean it from the sense that that's typically used, where you sign a bunch of guys, and I think that's how they filled their Dominican Summer League rosters up, by signing guys in volume out of Venezuela. So we'll have to wait and see what they do. It all will depend on the CBA. Our next question is from frequent emailer Lendell, and he says, with Andrew Benintendi now starting games in left field, it seems like he could be getting close to a call-up. When does he move to Boston? Would he be part of a platoon with Chris Young? That seems like the best use of them for the big league team, in my opinion. But do you think it could hurt Benintendi not seeing major league lefties or playing full-time? What do you think, Ian? I guess I'll throw it to you first.
I kind of like that idea of him platooning, at least initially. Be a good way, build some confidence up. I don't think we see him, if we do, until the end of August or September.
Yeah, I think that sounds right.
Well, I was going to add, he does have reverse splits this year. So, I mean, I don't know that he's going to be particularly more effective against righties. I don't think that the second part of his question I don't have any issue with, as far as him having to not play full time. It's sometimes a good way to introduce players to the major leagues, but I'm just not sure he's exactly a righty killer type of batter.
Right. Yeah, and honestly, I could see him coming up, but don't forget, part of it is, what's Blake Swihart's situation, although apparently his ankle is barking at him recently, is the reports on his rehab. So that seems to be going slowly. So who knows what his situation is. And Chris Young is also coming back from injury too. So I think they would love to have Brock Holt go back to his sort of super utility role. And I think that he might actually be good as sort of the Alex Cora to his Dustin Pedroia out in left field, him and Chris Young, to kind of help break him in. So I think August sounds about right. I could see August, late August. So that'd be interesting. But yeah, that's Benintendi. Thanks for the question. Our next question comes from Ian. Great name, right? And he asks, any update on Sam Travis? How is his recovery going? He and Carson Smith impressed me most at spring training, and I just hated seeing them both go down for the year. Wanted to make sure we answered the email. The answer is no. We don't have any update on how his recovery is going. We know what you do. Hate to be anticlimactic, but
just a normal, ACL tear type recovery. Should be back next April or May, probably, I would think.
That probably sounds about right. But yeah, we're gonna know when you know. So we don't really have anyone. With our limited resources, finding out 2 months after a guy tore his ACL how his rehab is going is probably not how we would ideally deploy them, unfortunately. And our final question for this episode our final email comes from Alvaro. I don't know how to pronounce your name. I apologize. But he has 3 questions. They're quick. Number 1, is the command and control of Pat Light so bad that he has not getting another shot at MLB? They always call up Noe Ramirez, who has not shown anything in the big leagues. Ian, what do you think there as a guy who's seen Light and Noe? I guess Matt too, but we'll start with Ian.
I think Noah Ramirez, up and down reliever, kind of exactly what he's been this year. He just doesn't have the stuff to, I think, hold down a role long term at the big league level. Light, that was always the question: is the command going to develop? He's been able to throw strikes in AAA, but not in the majors yet. So I think it's still TBD. But the stuff is there. It's just for him. It's just the stuff is there to be like a 7th, 8th inning guy. It's just, can you throw strikes?
Yeah, and in terms of calling up Ramirez over Light, I just think it's that they're kind of calling him up as an emergency arm to fill holes, sort of, and send him down in the next, few days, up and down type reliever. Whereas I think there is sort of something with Pat Light with the sort of psyche. He's, you even saw how nervous he was in his first appearance. I don't know if you saw any interviews with him or anything, but he was really nervous. And I think he is kind of guy who really should solidify his gains and really feel strong about where he is before they call him up for more of a longer, full chance.
Sounds about right. I think with Light, where the ceiling's a little higher, it's not like you don't want to use him as that up and down guy like Ramirez. So I think that's it there. He'll get his shot. Trust me. His next question, no love for Bryce Brents. In my opinion, he looks like a number 4 outfielder or second division starter or platoon against lefties. Why is there not love for him on the rankings? Even Devin Marrero, Henry Ramos, and a bunch of pitching, a bunch of projected relief pitchers, 7th or inning relief pitchers. I believe he means ranked ahead of Bryce Brents. Brents is interesting. Apparently he is hitting better in the majors because he can see better. Is what he's been telling people, and
wonderful. Gosh, another one of those.
I mean, he's down to hitting right now. He's hitting 292, 320, 396, and this is for a guy whose calling card is supposed to be his power. That's not good enough to be a 4th outfielder for me, especially when you're supposed to be the power hitting guy. I think he kind of is what he is at this point. I think he'd probably be better served to get traded to a team where they might give him a little bit more run in the outfield, but because, I mean, in this outfield, he's not ever going to play very much, and I just don't necessarily love him as a guy who comes in, hits right-handed. I mean, maybe he's the right-handed outfield bat that you want off the bench, but for me, I would prefer he not be that guy. Do either of you disagree?
I think part of it is, his career. He's had so many injuries, and coming back from those, he's had different really hot and cold streaks where it's been hard to sort of keep him ranked highly, just because you don't know whether he's ever going to have the chance to have this major league debut, because he may get injured or just not be. He's very streaky, so he might not be in a hot streak at the right time. And I also think he's not great defensively. You can see the Red Sox have been trying hard not to play him in right field. The last few nights, they moved that Michael Martinez into right field, and then they moved Brock Holt from left to right when they brought Bryce Brents in the game and put Brents in left. And I've seen him a lot in Pawtucket too, and he is a bit of an adventure in the outfield. Early in his Red Sox time up, he made a few plays that looked really great, but they were kind of because he got a bad jump or things like that. And he did that a lot in Pawtucket, where he'd lay out for balls that if he just gotten a good jump, he wouldn't have had to. But sometimes he makes those flashy plays. But overall, he's not that great of a defender, even though he has a really strong arm that would fit well in right field. But just doesn't get good reads overall.
Yeah, he's played nothing but left field since he's come up, and I think you can't be a 4th outfielder being left field only.
Yeah, and he's also 27 in terms of his prospect status. It's not like we're talking about like a 23 or 24-year-old. He kind of is what he is at this point, and this is probably what he is, up and down outfield. You'll call up when you need someone who can hit left-handed pitching maybe, but... Mm-hmm.
And he's coming back down to earth. In his last 7 games, 4 of those are starts. So in 17 plate appearances, he's got 2 hits. And the average on balls in play is low at 143. But, up when he was on July 8th, when after 9 games he was hitting 375, his average on balls in play was a robust 500. So a lot of that is regressing to the mean, pitchers figuring him out. The power just really hasn't been there. He had his last extra base hit was on June 27th when he had 2 doubles. He hasn't had an extra base hit since then. His average on balls in play right now is at 361. He's hitting 292, 320, 396 in the majors. So I don't know. And our last question before we can wrap this up, Alvaro asks about a guy we talked about earlier. Let's see. I believe Devers should move to second, hitting and power tool from Devers. Oh, I think he means second in the rankings. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. His hitting and power tool is the best of the big 3. Benintendi to me looks like an average major leaguer. Devers has potential to be a star. It's an interesting thought. I don't know that I agree with it, but I think I can respect it. Honestly, I don't know that I agree necessarily. He probably has the best power tool of the 3, but I don't know about the best hit tool. What do you guys think on that? Ian, maybe you've seen all 3.
I will say there are people around the game who agree with him that that aren't as high as Benintendi as some are.
Yeah, Keith Law had him to top prospect even when he was doing terribly. So he
has him ranked ahead of Benintendi now, right?
No, yeah. I think he has Benintendi ahead of both of them.
Really? Devers first is mid-season update. I'm almost.
Oh, did he? I thought he had Benintendi first in his mid-season update.
He had him like 11th or something.
regardless, though, I mean, I think it's for me. I think I have Moncada as the clear one, and I think Devers and Benintendi is very, very close at 2. I think Devers has a higher ceiling, both because I think he's going to stick at third base, and as he alluded to, I think he's definitely got more power than Benintendi, and I think the hit tool is similar. But Benintendi has a slight advantage in that he's going to run a little more. But I mean, yeah, you can definitely make that case, and I wouldn't disagree with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like I said, I don't agree with it necessarily, but fair thought. But you're entitled to your opinion. We'll be entitled to ours. Thanks for the emails, guys. Some great emails, most of which came in today. We always appreciate it. Again, podcast at soxprospects.com. Send them in. And gentlemen, unless you've got anything to add, I think it's time to send it home. So I want to thank everybody for downloading. Again, you can check us out on Stitcher, iTunes, YouTube, Google Play Music. Check us out on any of those. The news page always has the link to listen live, to stream. I guess not live, but streaming. And we appreciate you subscribing, rate and review. It helps us get in some more ears. For these two, I'm Chris. We'll be back at you in August. Like I said, it'll be a minute. We'll be back to you soon. In the meantime, send in your emails, and we'll be back at you to read the news page. Read us on Twitter. Anything else?
Nope, you covered it.
Cool. All right, we're out of here. Thanks, everybody.